just know the actual facts. Like people that don't think there's anything, that aliens are real. There's no way. We're alone. We've never been contacted.
Why not?
Joe Rogan talked about strange sightings for years. He asked tough questions and let guests speak. Now he says he doubts some of the wildest claims. Why did he shift from wonder to caution? Which stories held up and which did not? But what finally pushed Joe to question the very mysteries he once championed? And could the truth be far stranger than imagined? How Joe found UFOs. Joe Rogan built a large stage for his podcast. Millions of people listen to his show, which brings guests who talk about many things. Joe has talked about UFOs with pilots, researchers, and people who say they saw strange craft. The talk grew because the guests are famous. They had strong voices, and people wanted to know more. Tom DeLonge helped increase public interest in UFOs. He spoke about reports and documents and started a group that said it would study strange cases. That work moved the topic from personal talks to public talks. When Joe had Tom on the show, the idea that the government knew more reached many listeners. Luis Elizondo talked about a Pentagon program that studied unidentified aerial phenomena. He said he worked with a program that collected reports. His voice added weight to these issues. Some listeners took his words as proof that secrets existed. Other listeners kept asking for more evidence. David Grush later told the public that some people with inside knowledge had made strong claims about strange objects. His statements got public attention. People on Joe Rogan's show talked these claims over. The talk mixed witness stories with the idea that officials might hide things. That mix made the topic feel important to many fans. Pilots such as David Fravor and Ryan Graves gave accounts of events they say they saw in the military airspace. These pilots described hard-to-explain radar returns and visual sightings. Their accounts became central for people who wanted to believe that some events were occasional. Joe listened to those accounts and asked critical questions. Many viewers found their accounts true. Journalists and filmmakers like Jeremy Corbell and James Fox presented video clips, witnesses, and background information. They told viewers where those videos came from and who had seen them. That work made people want to know more about these objects. When those clips were shared on Joe Rogan's show, the audience grew more curious and surer that more was going on. At the same time, critics such as Mick West and other skeptical individuals argued for more testing. They said a video can be misread, sensors can be wrong, and memories can change. Those critics asked for standard checks. Joe gave space to those doubts in several discussions. The contrast between believers and skeptics made the show tense and lively. Joe used his long-form style to let people speak at length, which allowed deep talks, strong claims, and repeated discussions. Joe also allowed his own view to change. Over time, many listeners noticed he asked more probing questions. Those questions asked if witness reports were enough to support grand claims. Joe did not cut people off. He kept asking for details and for better records. Government reviews and reports also entered the talk. Offices that review national security released summaries that said, "Many events remain unexplained." Those summaries did not say that any alien technology was proven. They did call for better data and more studies. The mention of official reviews gave some guests more reason to press their claims. Viewers took the mix of personal accounts and formal reports as a cue to pay closer attention. The reach of the podcast meant that material which once moved slowly now spread quickly. When a pilot or a researcher shared a clip, news outlets and social feeds amplified it. The clip would reach so many people worldwide. Joe saw that effect, and he often asked guests to explain what their evidence was, where the clip came from, and who had handled it. That focus on sourcing started to change how Joe listened. Joe also talked with skeptics in other episodes. Those talks showed the limits of casual proof. Skeptics showed how sensors can glitch, how cameras can misread light, and how memory can change under stress. After those talks, Joe kept the issue alive, but he raised his own bar for what would count as proof. The discussions moved from claims to verified discussions. That shift set the scene for stronger scrutiny. But just as Joe sharpened his search for truth, a new wave of explosive claims emerged. Yet, who could he trust? The loudest claims and the people behind them. Joe hosted many guests with strong claims. Each guest brought evidence that backed their claims. The variety of claims made listeners pay attention. Tom DeLonge told stories about documents and meetings. He set up a group that said it would study unusual cases. He spoke with passion about important emails and files. His role moved money and attention towards study groups and media work. Luis Elizondo said he worked on a Pentagon program that looked at unidentified aerial events. He discussed how the program collected reports from military pilots. He said there were videos and reports that needed attention. His statements brought official talk closer to the public discussions. David Grush also made public statements that some people inside the government had strong claims about foreign objects. He said some witnesses described unusual beings. His public statements became a headline topic. People debated whether those claims could be shown with public records. David Fravor is a Navy pilot who described a close encounter in the sky. He said a shaped craft moved in a way he could not explain. His account included radar and visual information. Ryan Graves described persistent objects seen near air traffic routes. He talked about behavior that made pilots nervous. Both pilots asked for more formal checks into the matter. Another person is Jeremy Corbell, who shared clips and named their sources. He is a filmmaker who collects materials and interviews witnesses. James Fox also presented case files and videos as evidence. Their work created a set of evidence that people replayed and discussed. Other details added context. Reporters and some scientists asked for raw data. Skeptics such as Mick West argued that many clips can be explained by known causes. He pointed to sensor error, misidentification, and visual illusions. He urged the use of standard tests. Some guests suggested that certain events were evidence of secret programs or foreign technology. Other guests said objects might come from unknown origins. Few guests offered final proof. The talk often rested on trust in witnesses and in the quality of the material shown. Joe often asked the same core questions. Where did the video come from? Who handled the original sensor data? Did any official process verify the object as foreign technology or extraordinary? Those questions forced guests to clarify where their claims came from. When answers were vague, the claim lost force in Joe's view. The presence of so many named guests made the topic rich for discussion. Each person brought a new angle. The audience heard about pilots who saw strange flights, officials who said programs existed, and filmmakers who shared clips. That diversity kept the topic moving through mainstream culture. Some guests also described materials they said came from unusual objects. Those reports often relied on private testing or small labs. The chain of custody for such samples mattered to scientists and to Joe. When a sample passed through many hands without a public record, it raised questions about verification. Guests who had samples described laboratory reports that were not always public. Filmmakers and journalists raised the same issue. They tried to show who first handled a clip and how it moved into public view. That work helped in some cases, and it failed in others. At times, the clip owner was unknown, or the clip had no clear file history. Those gaps are the kind of details that matter to an analyst. Some guests pressed the idea that official secrecy kept key records from public view. Others suggested rival nations might have advanced craft. Few guests offered final proof. The discussion often rested on trust in witnesses and in the quality of the material shown. Social media made the debate faster. Clips went viral. Short excerpts are spread without context. Joe often asked guests to explain the full context, rather than let sound bites rule the day. When a guest could show a full file or name a witness, it made the case stronger for a lot of people. The claims on Joe's show were varied. Some claims were simple accounts. Others suggested deep programs and physical samples. Joe treated each claim with serious questions. He did not accept statements without more detail. That stance set the stage for the growing doubt that came later. But as more stories surfaced and contradictions piled up, one question began to haunt every viewer. What happens when the truth finally cracks? What broke the case for Joe and what did not? The shift from belief to doubt often comes when evidence is put to the test. In the discussions, many claims did not pass careful checks. That reality made listeners and hosts rethink how much weight to give to such accounts. Official reviews matter here. Offices that handle national security released reports that examined many incidents. These reviews found that a number of events had limited data. Some incidents had good radar and video. Other incidents had only a blurry clip or a single witness. The reports called for better recording, better sensors, and clearer data handling. They also warned against rushing into conclusions. Scientists at NASA urged a strict study method. They said that when the data is thin, the correct move is to collect more measurements. Proof requires a chain from the raw sensor to the analysis. When a clip moves through many hands, the trail can be broken, opening room for error and misinterpretation. Technical checks attracted problems. Some videos showed lights that matched aircraft, drones, or atmospheric effects. Some radar signatures came from sensor error or software quirks. Pilots can see strange lights at night. Human memory can change how someone describes a fast event. Analysts pointed to those limits when they explained why a case did not prove anything final. Other claims relied on testimonies without public records. Witness accounts can be powerful, but they need support. Where physical samples were offered, labs asked for the full chain of custody and for repeatable tests. When such proof was not available, or when test reports were private, the claims lost scientific force. Peer review is central in science. A claim needs to be checked by others. Many of the strongest public claims were not open to outside review. That fact alone shifted how skeptics and some hosts judged the material. If a claim cannot be checked by others, it remains a claim. Legal and national security limits also matter. Some records are classified for real reasons that reality makes it hard to prove or disprove some scenes in public. At the same time, official silence can be read as proof by some audiences. Joe and others had to weigh the limits of public records against the need for proof. Media clips that lack file history are weak. When a filmmaker or a podcaster shares a clip without source files, it leaves many questions. Who recorded it? What did the raw sensor show? How did the clip move from a device to a public upload? Answering those questions helps experts decide if the clip is valid. When too many gaps appear, the best position is caution. For Joe, that meant leaning toward demand for records and for tests that others could repeat. That move was not a retreat from curiosity. It was a shift toward methods that could be checked by others. In the next few minutes, we will look at how Joe explained that change on his own show. Experts outside the UFO community also weighed in. Physicists, radar engineers, and aviation safety specialists explained how sensors behave. Those experts teach that a single sensor readout is rarely enough. A clear case needs multiple, independent measurements that agree. Where only one measurement existed, experts warned to be careful. Skeptics ran tests on several public clips. They tried to reproduce motion or apparent behavior with known equipment. In some cases, they showed that normal objects or camera artifacts could match the clip. Those tests do not prove every clip is explainable, but they do show the need for more proof before claiming an extraordinary origin. The influence of social proof also played a role. When many people repeat a claim, it can look stronger than it is. Hosts, guests, and viewers amplify each other. That loop can make a weak clip feel decisive. For someone like Joe Rogan, that effect demanded new standards. He began to ask for reports, full sensor logs, and experts who could check claims. Legal reviews noted that some data could not be released. The presence of classified files creates a gap that is hard to bridge in public talk. Officials encouraged the public to collect better open data. That advice included using more sensors, documenting the chain of custody, and enabling independent review. In short, such claims require strong proof. Public headlines and viral clips stirred interest. The deeper checks often reduced the certainty around those clips. That reality pushed many listeners to a cautious view. Joe adapted by raising the questions he wanted answered and by asking his guests to show their source material. But as the noise grew louder, one question began to eclipse the hype. What truth was slipping through the cracks that no one noticed? Why Joe said he stopped believing in the conspiracy version? Joe Rogan made a change in how he talked about UFOs. He moved from open wonder to more guarded questions. That change came from many small things he heard and from weak links in public claims. First, guests who claimed unrealistic secrets often lacked public proof. When a former official said a program existed without public documents, many listeners wanted more. Joe wanted records and direct proof. He asked guests to show source files, raw sensor logs, and witnesses. When those items were not available, his confidence in the claim dropped. Second, pilots and crew who offered clear reports still left questions. The pilots talked about what they saw. Their words carried weight because of training and service. Even then, some incidents had ambiguous sensor returns or only partial visual records. Joe began to separate the pilot account from the claim that a program was hiding alien craft. He treated each pilot report as a moment to study, not as proof of a conspiracy. Third, the role of media and viral clips changed perception. Clips cut for headlines can create a false sense of proof. Several guests offered short videos that did not include the raw metadata. When a clip lacks full context, it can mislead. Joe noticed how often such talks included clips with missing files. That pattern made him ask for stronger evidence. Fourth, experts outside the UFO field weighed in with technical points. Radar engineers and sensor specialists explained how equipment counts and how software can show strange returns. Laboratory scientists said that material testing must be repeatable and open to other labs. Those technical backings added a new standard to the discussion. Joe responded by asking guests if outside labs could test samples. Fifth, official reports recommended more data and more standard reporting. Those recommendations did not confirm alien craft. They did show that the right move is better sensing and better records. The reports also showed that many cases remain unexplained only because of limited data. That nuance changed how Joe framed the issue. He stopped treating every unexplained case as proof of a secret craft. Sixth, some prominent claims raised legal and evidentiary problems. When someone says a physical object exists but will not release it for review, the claim cannot be checked. When witnesses say they saw material but the chain of custody is private, the claim cannot be tested in public. Joe grew impatient with claims that depended on secrecy alone. Seventh, social proof and group persuasion played a role. When many people in the same circle nodded at a claim, it gained weight in public. Joe noticed how group talk can amplify weak evidence. He began to ask whether a claim stood on its own or relied on group pressure. Eighth, skepticism found ways to test claims. Skeptics reproduced some effects with simple gear. They showed how camera angle, lens flare, and common objects can look strange. Those tests did not explain every report, but they did show how easy it is to misread some clips. All these elements combined into a simple rule for Joe. He would keep asking questions, and he would not accept secretive claims as proof. He would give pilots and honest witnesses respect. He would also demand the kind of records that scientists and officials call for. The change was not a dismissal of the topic. It was a move to require public proof and to avoid the trap of rumors dressed as evidence. In his later talks, Joe said he moved from buying conspiracy versions to asking for clear proof. He kept his curiosity, but he raised the standard for what he would accept on his show. That shift changed how his audience hears UFO talk. Some listeners followed him toward caution. Other listeners held on to their earlier beliefs. Joe still invites experts, pilots, and reporters to discuss new material. The lesson he models is to be curious, but to ask for records and for tests that others can repeat. Those steps separate public talk from rumors. They also keep the door open for new evidence to be shown. Thanks for watching today's video. Do not forget to like. You may also leave your opinion in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.